they should be right. Okay, they can hear me. I don't know if they can hear me though. Uh, can they hear me? Let me see if they can hear me. Because last time I did the recording, they couldn't hear me. So hopefully this time they can hear me. We're gonna do 2 hours today because I'll try to procrastinate as less as possible. So enough of the introduction and talking and stuff. We're just going to get straight to work because I got 2 hours, 14 minutes. So we finished that. We finished that. We finished that. We finished this directional stability. All right. Let's do the transcript. Go to Chat GBD. Chat GBD. I mean, not that I care about, right? What's your stance on Israel wishing Eid Mubarak? Would you wish Eid Mubarak? Not that I care, but would you? I mean, Israel wished Eid Mubarak, right? Israel wished Eid Mubarak. Benjamin Netanyahu wished Eid Mubarak. So now, would you wish Eid Mubarak? I mean, I'm not wrong, right? I'm not wrong here. Also, we get it. You love someone else. We get it. All right, we get it. We get it. You love someone else. Okay, get it. We get it. We get it. Don't have to, be too arrogant or cool stuff, dude. We get it. All right, we aren't dumb. Carbon filtering. Oh, there's okay. It is working. Let's try to learn as much as possible. All right. Uh, yeah, I'm just going to focus on the maths. Just please explain it easy. I got a job, and like if I don't understand, it's like, oh my god, I wasted my time. I won't understand this forever and stuff like that. So please right. I'm gonna beg ChatGPT that whenever you explain, just please explain so easily that I get it on the first try, because I won't have time to understand. I mean, yeah, it takes time. I'm not saying it doesn't take time, but at the same time, it's like, and I know I should spend like a week, but what, I mean, I'm pretty fast actually, because yeah, you need those. You need those 6 degrees of freedoms and stuff. Yes, that's what I'm worried about. You need them. these guys who didn't have AI, oh my God. Oh my God. I am so lucky I have AI. Wait, before that, before that, can you see like what is the pasted text? Pasted text. Just yes or no. I want to see the comments. Wait, I know. I just want to see the comments. Yeah, man. Does no one there? You're waving at no one. Oh, I know this. I know this. The first one. She took a picture there. That's not. It doesn't look American, but okay. It, wait. Does it look American? I don't think that looks American. Maybe it is. I mean, I see an Irish flag. I'm definitely that's not uh Memorial Day. You don't wear green on Memorial Day. You wear, I think, blue, right? Blue or black. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anybody waving back at me. What the fuck you talking about us? Man, if you look at the Instagram comments, like good. If you look at the X comments, whoa, oh, the X comments. Okay, create a latex code. The X comments. If you want anything, make sure you go to X comments, bro. The X comments, man. Like they like because I think it made the feedback control and closed loop stability. So do a latex code for this. Do a full. Okay, how many sections are there for each? How many for each pasted text? For each pasted text, how many sections are there? Like, and okay, 23, 18, 24, 25. Can we do 12, 9, 12, 13? Can we have uh, two sections as one, meaning pasted text one will have 12. We'll do it 12. We'll do 12. Pasted text 2 will have 9, then 12, then 13. Can we do that? All right, so create a latex code for all the pasted text with the combined sections and label that as 1.5 feedback control and closed loop stability. 1.5, the feedback control and closed loop. So label that as 1.5 feedback control and closed. stability. 4 hours ago. He posted 4 hours ago. Yeah, I don't like when they insult. I don't like it. I mean, yeah, I mean, X, like I said, X has like the, I mean, yeah, I know I was laughing, but at the same time, it's not good. It's not good to tell this woman. It's not good. It's not nice. I mean, that's a threat. Yeah, it's not nice. But her plan was to get all the engagements and stuff, which is not nice. Not nice. Not nice. Oh, wow. Oh, yes, the World Cup. When does the World Cup begin? June 11. When do I get uh 5? Qatar vs Switzerland, Brazil vs Morocco, Canada vs Bosnia Herzegovina. I think the first big match this will be a good one, Netherlands vs Japan. But the first big match will be France vs Senegal. France vs Senegal, Iraq vs Norway, Argentina vs Algeria. This will be a good one. Dude, France, look at I'll buy the 2026-27 kit. I'll buy the 2026-27 France kit. Oh, you need to add a star. Oh my God. Okay, so it is. Um. Okay, so you made a mistake. So, yeah, you made a mistake. So you made a mistake. The mistake is you have to write. Okay. You have to write. So label. So you have to label 1.5, and then the. I don't have much time, unfortunately. 1.5 this, then have all the combined sections, then 1.5.1, which is directional stability, then all the combined, and do the same for 1.5.2, uh, directional control, 1.5.3, lateral stability and control, and 1.5.4, directional, lateral, and stability control in numericals. So directional, lateral, and stability controls in numericals. I won't have much time since I got work after 2 hours, sadly. So I have a job, right? I have a job. I mean, they don't understand that the only reason I'm able to pay for this is because I'm working. I'll try my best to finish 1.1 and 1.2. I'll try my best. I'll really try my best. And I'll see what I can do. Like I'll see if I can finish 1.5.1 and 1.5.2. One good thing is that AI exists. which I'm really grateful for, because like many people will not utilize it. I am going to utilize it because yes, I'm using AI, but at the same time, I'm not you know misusing it. I'm trying to learn from it. Just going to remove that. Put a star here. Uh, Star here and star here. Star here. Star here. All right, let's begin. Uh, did we do this? Why does it feel like we did this? I don't know why, but why does it feel like we did this? It looks familiar. Is it possible, like for section 1, 2, and 3, can we do two examples for each? For section 1, 2, and 3, can we do can we do two oh wait, I know why. I know why. I forgot to copy the abstract. Oh crap. Okay. Uh Change of plans. Write the same latex code, like the same latex code, pasted text. Latex code, pasted text in correlation to this abstract here. Same structure. Same structure, like sections and whatever. But in correlation to this exact abstract. Again, I'll try my best to finish both the chapters. I mean, no, not both the chapters, 1.5.1 and 1.5. I'll try my best. I'll really, really try my best. All right, good stuff. Yeah, pretty large trajectory at deviations. So traditional fixed offline systems cannot adapt dynamically. So adaptive feedback system therefore compete UFT. UFT being the steering and whatever. We know that. Let's do section 1 to section 6. Let's do two master examples that explains everything from section 1 to section 6. Let's do that. Let's do one master example. So I know, like, is it possible to like explain thoroughly like what's going on from section 1 to section 6? Is it possible to explain thoroughly like what is going on from section 1 to section 6, and then use like like two master examples to like better understand that okay, this is what's going on, that is what's going on. Is it possible to explain each section thoroughly, easy, easy, like make sure that the students understand what is going on. Students understand what is going on. So is it possible to explain thoroughly, like easy, like make sure that the students understand what is going on, followed by two master. So that's for each section. Keyword each section. Explain each section. Keyword each section. And then we are working, right? Okay, it is reconnecting again. All right, all right, all right. We're working. Let's go. All right, all right. We're working. Let's go. Okay, a lot of English, but okay. So directional stability fundamentals. So directional stability derivates that C of n of beta, and the stable motion require. What is C of n of beta? Um, the coefficient. I know it's a coefficient for positive side slip. Is it possible to explain what is the coefficient? What's that C of n of beta? Like I see that you're not explaining that. I see that. We just move them. What is C of n of beta? What is C of n of beta? Can you explain that? Yawing moment coefficient. So explain them, right? So explain them. So whenever, so can you do me a favor? Can you do section one again? This time explain those coefficients um because students are here to learn, right? So students are here to learn. They also have a job. They also have a job. That's why you get paid because we pay you. So you do the service for us. There you go. You should mention because we pay them. I'll try to finish 1.5.1 and 1.5.2. I'll try my best. I mean, none of my close people, the closest people, they don't even know what I'm doing. They have no clue what I'm doing. No clue. No, none. Nobody knows what I'm doing. Nobody. That's a good thing. Nobody knows what I'm doing. So directional stability derivative. So there's the directional stability derivative coefficient for n of beta. The stable rocket motion requires that coefficient for n of beta must be greater than 0, meaning the directional stability must be greater than 0. The positive side slip must generate restoring yawing moment. So CFN represents the yawing moment coefficient. Yaw means rocket nose rotates left or right. Suppose rocket rotates sideways, n, the large N meaning large rotational yawing motion. An aerodynamic motion equation is N is equal to Q times S times B times L times coefficient of the yawing moment, where S being the reference area, B being the reference length, C of N being the non-dimensional yaw coefficient. And so C of N must measure the aerodynamic yaw strength. Beta represents the side slip angle. Suppose the rocket velocity direction becomes different from rocket nose direction. So rocket velocity direction becomes okay. So rocket velocity direction is towards the right. The rocket nose direction is upwards. So it'll be like that. The angle between them is beta. Suppose the crosswind pushes the rocket sideways, so beta will increase. And coefficient, so directional stability derivative becomes a dc of n divided by d of beta, meaning how the yaw moment will change when the side slip changes. So suppose beta increases, and so then the rocket will generate the yawing moment, n. And if the rocket restoring moment appears that n is less than 0, then rocket rotates back towards equilibrium. Thus, the stable rocket will require that the coefficient, that the derivative yaw moment coefficient must be greater than 0. And so the stable rocket behavior, suppose the wind gust pushes the rocket sideways. So we know what the CFN is. So we know that CFN being the yaw moment coefficient, which is literally the yaw moment coefficient, which means it moves the rocket left or right. And suppose the rocket rotates sideways, n, so there will be a large n. Rocket rotates sideways, so rocket rotates sideways, so a large n means a large yaw motion, so on and so forth. And beta is the side slip angle. So if let's say if the rocket is moving that side, so if the rocket is moving this way, and you also have the angle, oh shit, and if you also have the wind pushing on the top, then you know that the angle between where the velocity is moving to where the wind is pushing, the angle between these two is the beta angle, right? The side slip angle. And obviously, the directional stability Cn of beta will be dc of n, which is the yaw moment coefficient divided by, so how much the yaw moment changes at every infinitesimal angle. So suppose if the beta increases, then you're gonna have obviously a capital N. You're gonna have a large N. And if the restoring moment appears at n is less than 0, then the rocket rotates back towards equilibrium, which means the stable rocket requires that the coefficient for n of beta is less than 0. Stable rocket behavior, suppose the wind gust pushes the rocket sideways. Wind gust pushes the rocket sideways, then sideways. Okay, I have a question. Do you know which rocket I'm talking about? I have a question. Do you know which rocket I'm talking about? Which rocket I am talking about? I don't think so. So, missile. We're focusing on missiles. We're focusing on hypersonic missiles. So, can we? Yeah, I know. I know. That I know. There will be huge shocks, which I am very aware of it. So, can we do one? Like, can you explain section one again? So can you explain section one again? This time, okay, there is no section one again. This time, with the fact that um, with the fact that with the fact that um, the missile or the missile example is taken into consideration. So this time, can you explain it again? This time in in um, consideration to a hypersonic missile, and let us do two master examples for this. They said to do a master example. Yeah. So directional stability, we know that. Understanding hypersonic missile, yaw motion. So hypersonic missiles will travel at the velocity greater than 5 Mach. So thus the velocity becomes extremely large. And suppose the crosswind pushes the missile sideways, the missile velocity direction changes, and the missile nose direction becomes different from the velocity direction. Nose direction becomes different from the velocity direction, which creates a side slip angle. The nose direction becomes different from the velocity direction, which is a side slip angle. At hypersonic speeds, even very small beta or a small side slip angle can generate enormous aerodynamic moments. And understanding the yaw moment coefficient, so that's the yaw moment coefficient, which represents the aerodynamic yaw strength, where N is equal to Q times L, S times L times the coefficient, the yaw moment coefficient. Q is equal to half rho V square, S being the reference area, L being the reference length. And during the hypersonic flight, the velocity will increase aggressively. During the hypersonic flight, the velocity will increase aggressively. And so thus, you're going to have more of the pitch rate or the aerodynamic pitch rate. There will be a very high aerodynamic pitch rate because you have a very high velocity. Because if you have a very high velocity, you also have, if you do a very high velocity and then v squared, you are going to have what? Very, very, very high velocity, obviously. But then if you were to multiply the square of the value with the aerodynamic density and divide it by 2, you still are going to have very high pitch rate, the aerodynamic pitch rate. So even tiny aerodynamic coefficients change can produce huge yaw moments. Right? So obviously we know that what the directional stability it is. So the directional stability would be equivalent to the change in the yaw moment coefficient in correlation to the side slip angle. This means that it will measure how much yaw moment has changed in correlation to the infinitesimal side slip angle. And so if the disturbance were to increase, then the stable missile must automatically generate a yaw moment in which that the yaw coefficient ends up less than zero. Because if the beta angle increases, then they must do that more. We're going to focus on that. We're going to focus that in chapter 2. So we're going to make sure that, let's say, for example, if the side slip angle is increasing, then we must make sure that the beta, or what you call, not the beta, sorry, the yaw coefficient is less than zero. So which means if it were to go up, then you want to make sure that it goes maybe to the left to keep it more straight, or maybe to the right. Depends on as long as your yaw moment is less than zero. So which to which direction the yaw moment will be less than zero, we are not sure because it can either be left, it can either be right, depending on your trajectory. But that is the main aspect here. So if I were to consider that is going up, to make it more stable, maybe I'm going to go right. So if I were to say that, let's say I'm going to aim at I don't know, 35 degrees north of east, right? I'm going to say 35 degrees north of east. If I were to say 35 degrees north of east, but it's going up, and if I were to push left, it can easily go left. But if I push right, it can easily go right, and it will also go towards where I want to, you know, launch the missile, right? So why hypersonic missiles are dangerous dynamically? So during the hypersonic ascent, the velocity of t must be greater, meaning the dynamic pressure will become q is equal to half rho v square. Is the dynamic pressure. And since the velocity appears v square, it'll be amplified. So even a small change can be amplified. And so suppose beta is 1 degrees, that's dangerous. That is very dangerous. It's like saying you have a car, like if you put a car on a treadmill and let's say you pushed, I don't know, the trailer, like you poked at the trailer, the car is going to swerve because, you know, it's like a hook, right? It's like a hook. It's a very sensitive hook. The missile trajectory deviates dynamically. So the traditional fixed controllers struggle because the density changes, the heating changes, the shock waves will change, the aerodynamic coefficients vary during the hypersonic flight. And during the adaptive closed loop stabilization, so we're going to have x hat of t that gives you the estimate position of where the missile exists at the moment. So the controller will compute. Obviously, you're going to have the steering controller. So you're going to have u of t being the derivation in correlation to the thrust velocity correction. So thrust velocity correction. And so the closed loop state would be a of x plus b of u plus d of t, where obviously d of t being the disturbance. So obviously, wind gust, aerodynamic uncertainty, these are all disturbances. So why TVC is important? So at hypersonic speeds, the aerodynamic surfaces heat heavily, and it's like saying, I know there is this one video where they said that what happens if you run, what happens if you increase your speed 1 meter per second every second. So um, when you run too fast, the spine, so the when you run, yeah, like the spine and the buttocks, the bones for that, they're going to rub each other. So whenever you run, the spine and the buttocks, like if you look at the buttocks, right, the bones over there, they rub each other because obviously you're running with legs, right? So they're going to rub each other. And faster you run, the faster you run, the obviously the speed that we use, don't worry about it. But if you run like at, I don't know, 100 meter per second to 100 meter per second, the bones will try to rub against each other, and obviously when you rub um like anything that's hard, it's going to create a spark, and so you're running continuously, so technically no, that happens when you run too fast, so it's going to rub against each other, right? Because you're running at hypersonic speed, so you literally broke the sound barrier. So same thing here at hypersonic speeds, it's going to heat up very quickly because the amount of energy needed is extreme. And you will also have shock waves, because the only reason you will have shock waves is because it continuously is breaking the sound barrier. Continuously it's going to break the sound barrier. Continuously it's going to break the sound barrier. And the control surfaces will lose its effectiveness because it is so fast that every single millisecond counts. But obviously, like as of now, we don't have a model that can count milliseconds. Because 1/1000th of a second, if there was a change in angle, you're done. Anything can go wrong. But obviously, the more you learn, the more precise it ends up, right? The restoring moment becomes m is equal to r times t times del of TVC. The large thrust will generate strong stabilization moment. So obviously, you are going to have large thrust because at the end of the day, it is a hypersonic missile, right? And then stability under uncertainty. Suppose the aerodynamic coefficient uncertainty appears at the this change in uncertainty, right? Del of Cn. That's a change in the yaw moment. So suppose the thrust uncertainty appears at del T, and the air density reduces. You have a change in stability, you have a change in thrust, and you have a lower in air density. The missile dynamics continuously change during the ascent, so adaptive guidance therefore continuously updates the aerodynamic estimates, trajectory estimates, thrust estimates, control commands to maintain the stable hypersonic flight. Let's do master example 2. You have adaptive closed loop hypersonic guidance. So suppose the thrust uncertainty is plus minus 5%. The nominal thrust will be 1,200,000. Obviously, this is no, I'm not saying this is an exaggeration value. This can be a real value, but this could be very low. Why? It again, the keyword is hypersonic. And so during the normal thrust, you're gonna have 1,200,000, let's say. So thus, you're gonna have a change of plus minus. Is that 120,000 or 1 million? it is 1,200,000. So maybe the change in thrust. So if you do plus minus 5%, so 5/100 times 1,200,000, so 60,000. You can have plus 60,000 to the right, minus 60,000 to the left. So your range of values can be Oh, I should have. Oh my god, I should have explained it. Should have explained it. So there was this image of truck having like two seats and a heavy object. Should have explained it. The weight would massacre it. Like the weight of the heavy object would topple over the weight of the people. So technically, you're gonna drive it this way. So adaptive closed loop hypersonic guidance. So let's say the thrust is plus minus 5%. The nominal thrust is 1,200,000. So the change in thrust would be plus minus 60,000. Suppose the aerodynamic uncertainty appears to be 0.001. So the state vector will become beta and r. So keep that in mind. 0.001 is, you may think it's accurate for a space rocket. This is a missile we're talking about. So state vector will become x is equal to beta and r. So closed loop dynamics would be the first derivative for x will be equivalent to ax plus bu plus a derivative, meaning the disturbance, wind, whatever. Suppose the disturbance increases by 7 degrees, and so the estimator will compute the x hat of t. So you're going to get the estimated position because now you have a 7-degree change. So if I were to say this is where the missile is launching, what the sensor is going to give you the information, okay, the missile is here. That's an estimate. The only reason we say that as being an estimate is because, again, the beta is 7 degrees, right? So the controller will compute the optical steering command, whatever. So it's going to compute, do the computation and stuff like that. So U star of t. U of t, we know that uh, del of um, the thrust vector correction. But the U star of t, meaning the sensor is literally doing the computation. And so suppose the U star of t is 0.006. Okay, cool. So the restoring thrust moment m is equal to the length or the distance multiplied by the thrust multiplied by the derivative of the thrust vector correction. So we'll have 0.006 multiplied by 1,200,000 multiplied by what was that? 3.1. You're going to have the pitch moment as 220, 22,320. So this should be a moment that the pitch moment, I'm not pitch moment, sorry, thrust moment that must be integrated into your rocket to ensure that it is. So you must add this much amount of thrust moment to correct or to fix the error that the 7 degrees missile is currently holding at. Let's do section 2 now. Yeah, let's do section 2. Again, same thing, easy, calm explanation. Like, I know that you like to explain, you want to throw in with lots of English, but don't throw in a lot of English. Use English for core. Let's do section 2 and section 3 together. Actually, let's do section 2, section 3, section 4, and section 5. Yeah. And section 6. Let's add section 6. Okay. So let's add. What? What's this? Which one is section 2 again? Mm. Oh, okay. It's not going to work like that. Yeah, the Wi-Fi is actually pretty slow. Oh, it can only work for one now. Control V, move them, move all four. Can you explain section 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 again? This time in consideration of the hypersonic missile, and then let's do Let's do two master examples. Let's do two master examples that explain the section 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in correlation to the hypersonic missile. Give me 2 seconds. It says Cepeda. Okay. I'm just going to use the washroom and come back. He did it. We're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Oh, it's going to be difficult. Definitely, it's going to be difficult. 5, 6. Master example 1, master example 2. So the wind gust disturbance in hypersonic missiles. So suppose the wind gust appears that the change in the so there can be wind uncertainty, aerodynamic uncertainty, where it is not equal to zero. It can be greater than zero. And in most cases, it is greater than zero. And the slip angle changes, right? Obviously, beta will be greater. And in most cases, the like if you were to do at the beginning of the launch, the change in angle, the slip up angle is not the angle itself, but it's actually the change in angle. The change in angle is you know likely to increase. The hypersonic missile trajectory deviates dynamically. So why the wind gusts are dangerous? Because obviously you must understand that a hypersonic missile launches at velocity greater than 5 Mach. So that velocity will become extremely large. So if you think of 5 Mach, okay, 1 Mach is how much speed? Um, Mach to velocity. So Mach is equivalent to velocity divided by the speed. Velocity divided by the speed of light. So you must understand that 1 Mach is fast. Now in a hypersonic missile, it moves greater than 5 Mach. So do you have you have like if I were to blink my eye, the hypersonic missile will reach to the end destination faster than I blink my eye. So thus the velocity will become extremely large, and the dynamic pressure will become q is equal to half rho v square, where the velocity appears squared. And which means that even if I were to have a very tiny, minuscule change in angle, I am going to have a very large yaw moment, right? The hypersonic side slip behavior. So suppose the missile nose direction becomes different from the velocity direction. So the velocity direction is towards the right, and the missile nose direction is upward. And angle between them will become beta, which is called the side slip angle. At hypersonic missile, even not even 1 degrees, even 0.1 degrees can be notoriously dangerous, right? Even 0.1 degrees can be notoriously dangerous. The dynamic pressure growth, so suppose the velocity increases or V increased, then Q will increase. So if the velocity increase, the dynamic pressure will also increase, and the suppose doubles. So if you have V to 2V, then you're going to have Q to 4Q. Because if you have V to 2V, you're squaring that velocity, right? And when you square that velocity, you're going to have 4 times whatever the Q value is. And obviously, in a hypersonic missile, if I were to increase the velocity double, then if let's say for whatever the velocity will be, obviously I know that q is equal to half rho v squared, right? So if v was 2, then obviously v squared will be 4. And the q, like I know that the half is there and stuff like that, but if I were to look at in, because the pitch rate correlates in correlation to the amount of velocity squared, right? That's in, so the pitch rate is directly proportional to the velocity squared. And if I were to have a very high velocity, I mean, yeah, very high velocity, and I square that, then I'm going to have a very high pitch rate, right? And for a hypersonic missile, it is notoriously fast, notoriously fast. So we're going to have notoriously high aerodynamic pressure. Why fixed controller struggle? Because the fixed, first of all, I know all those information and stuff like that exists, but long story short, the fixed controllers exist is because the values are pre-recorded, meaning everything's coded then imported. They're gonna do the action based on what is being programmed, but you never know what will happen the next time it's on the air. And this is especially crucial for hypersonic missiles. It's very hard to compute a hypersonic missile, but because of those shock waves, because of density change, because of thermal change, because of temperature change, anything can happen, right? And you'll not be able to actually compute. You'll not be able to compute. What do you call? You will not be able to compute um, the trajectory probably, or you will not be able to compute. Oh, I need this much thrust, because what they do is they usually when they calculate the thrust, they always consider the large value because they will think it's a safe side. But they what they don't understand is that although they're saying that cool, we are going to increase our thrust, we are going to increase our um, the power to restore, like power to generate the hypersonic missile to launch. What they don't understand is you're literally wasting it because at the end of the day, when it poof, then obviously that thrust is gone. So you'd want to make sure that it is efficient, because if you have more than what is required, it is just going to subconsciously use up more, which is not needed because like you didn't you didn't program that. Oh, you need this much, right? They didn't say that. Oh, you need this much, you need that much, right? They didn't compute that beforehand. Everything was fixed, so they will always preferably go for the large value just to you know cumber up, like like to compensate for any mistake that happens on the future time steps. But if I were to look, but that's a fixed one because obviously they're only focusing on the thrust, but they're not taking into consideration that there can be a change in aerodynamic density, there can be a change in aerodynamic density, there can be a change in what do you call the thrust velocity. Probably they need more than what is required, and if we don't have it, yeah, you're doomed, right? And rather than struggling, like rather than saying, oh, we need to code, 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 I mean, you can, but it's best to literally come up with few maths and then implement that as one AI. I'm not doing that yet because this is chapter one. So we can what we like. My plan is that we're gonna have like few maths and whatever, implement that in the AI model, and all we're going to do is like it's kind of like a black box. So is going to measure in correlation to the thrust velocity, is going to measure in correlation to the aerodynamic density, it's going to measure in correlation to the trajectory or the slip up angle. Based on those, everything will be computed, and they're going to say, okay, this is the thrust I need, this is the velocity I need, this much angle I need to change, and whatever, right? So because these are what you call offline models, so nothing is, because everything is fixed and pre-calculated, pre-programmed, and then implemented there. But that's pretty much dangerous because if you're talking about a hypersonic missile, the trajectory deviation, suppose the slider slip up increases, PT increases. So obviously, if your slip up increases, then the error will increase dramatically. And the reason being is because if I were to have a very high slip up angle, eventually what happens is that I am also going to have a very high error, because any little change can cause huge error. Because at the end of the day, even 0.01 is dangerous. I'm not talking about on the launch, I'm not talking about in the air, but if you were to have a hypersonic missile which want it precise. Make sure that you don't have as much error as possible because at the end of the day, it is a hypersonic missile, right? And then estimated compute the x hat of t. So that's the estimated position of where the missile exists at the moment in correlation to the aerodynamic uncertainty in correlation to the slip up angle and whatever. Why adaptive guidance is necessary during the hypersonic missile flight? So aerodynamic forces are vary rapidly. Thermal effects will change dynamically and density continuously changes. Wrong with the Wi-Fi. Uh, is it working? Is it working? We see if it's working. Right, we are working. Cool. Anyways, sorry, my bad. Oof, oof, oof. Yeah, we know them. The hypersonic speed fins heat strongly, shockwave becomes nonlinear, aerodynamic, and all the stuff. V square matter, hypersonic heating effect. What section is this? Directional stability and the uncertainty. Suppose the aerodynamic uncertainty appears del of CFN, which is the change in the yaw moment. The hypersonic missile stability changes dynamically. So why the uncertainty exists? Because the hypersonic ascent, during the hypersonic ascent, the density will change, the shock waves move, the turbulence changes, the heating will change, the heating changes, Mach number changes. Aerodynamic coefficients will become the yaw moment in correlation to every time step instead of just yaw moment, right? Closed loop stability equation. Yes, we did that. We did that. Yes, we did this in the previous one also. That's the missile dynamic matrix, and this is the control matrix. Because you're gonna this the only reason we say this is the missile dynamic matrix because it correlates to where would the like which vect like if I were to draw a 3 by 3 matrix, I'm going to say okay, which one will be the aerodynamic stability, which part will be the damping, which part will be the rotational behavior and stuff. So rest of them will be zero. On the diagonal values, we're going to have we're not exactly going to have one, but we're going to have like 0.9 or 0.77, something like that, right? And then we're going to multiply that with the side slip angle and the yaw rate. And for this is the control matrix. So think of it like, um, you're going to control the matrix. So you're going to control because it's in 3D, right? So X, Y, and Z. So you're going to have a 3 by 3 matrix. So you're going to say you're going to move one to the left, no, maybe 0.7 to the left. So 0.7 yaw and 0. Maybe 6.3 up and 0. Something like that. Something like that. Similar to that, right? And the disturbance can be wind gust, thrust uncertainty, aerodynamic uncertainty, turbulence, shockwave disturbance. And adaptive closed loop hypersonic guidance. So suppose the aerodynamic uncertainty appears the coefficient for CFN is 0.0012. And suppose the thrust uncertainty will become the del T being plus minus 5%. So nominal thrust T is 1,400,000. We just did that. So suppose the state vectors are 6 degrees and 0.009, 0.09. So the trajectory deviation increases dynamically. So the estimator will compute the x hat of t, and obviously you're going to make sure you're going to make use of the steering or whatever, right? So you're going to do the computation for steering to ensure that they do the thrust vector correction. So restoring the thrust vector moment, so m will be r times the distance multiplied by the thrust multiplied by the derivation for the thrust vector correction. So if r were to be 3.4, then 3.4 multiplied 1,400,000 multiplied 0.0065. Right, and then that 6 and 0.09, you can do that x hat is equal to whatever the a vector will be. So if I were to have 0.7, 0.63, 0.75, something like that, multiplied by 6 degrees and 0.009, 0.09. Uh, yeah. Let's do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Like, make it easy to understand, make it very easy to understand. And yeah, we'll proceed from there. So 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let us. Okay, there is no one. Okay, section 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Explain thoroughly. Explain easy, thoroughly. Like so far, the explanation has been good, has been kind of good. I mean, again, it has been really good. Again, this is chapter one. This is chapter one. Calm down. This is chapter one. Um, let's keep going. Let's keep going. S- section 7. Each section explain in consideration to the hypersonic missile, and then like like thoroughly the in depth. So less English, more maths, and the only English I want to see The only English I want to see is um, the only English I want to see is the core explanation. I have a question. How would I want to? Does he drink coffee? Follow his daily routine for the next 5 months. I also work at a place where heavy lifting is subconsciously needed, consciously needed. Thus, all right. Section 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. 10, 11, and 12. So mass variation effects in hypersonic missiles. So rocket mass decreases, so the pitch moment of m of t decreases. So this inertia changes the dynamic. This inertia changes dynamically during the ascent. So why the mass changes? So hypersonic missiles continuously burn fuel, obviously, and the fuel mass decreases dramatically. So the mass flow rate becomes m being less than zero. Suppose the initial mass is 18,000 kilograms, that's going to be 12,000, but it's going to be much, 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 much lighter. And the inertia changes. So a rotational inertia depends on mass. So if the pitch moment, I mean not the pitch moment, the field mass rate decreases, then obviously the inertia will decrease, and the missile will rotate more easily, because it'll be very hard for a missile to rotate very easily if the mass of the fuel is very high, right? And then you also have the angular acceleration effects, or rotational dynamics. M is equal to I times the angular velocity. Not the angular, yeah, angular acceleration, angular velocity, but the first derivative of the angular velocity, in which you see that there is this omega dot. Omega is the angular velocity, and the first derivative of velocity is acceleration. First derivative of angular velocity is angular acceleration. And suppose the same aerodynamic moment m is constant, and if the inertia decreases, the angular acceleration will increase, because if the mass rate decreases, then obviously the inertia will decrease. So which means it's going to rotate very aggressively, and because it's rotating aggressively, you're going to have more acceleration. The missile rotation response becomes more aggressive dynamically, right? So it's going to rotate more and more and more because the angular acceleration increases. One is acceleration, one is the angular acceleration. The hypersonic control difficulty is at hypersonic speeds, the aerodynamic load changes, the mass changes, the inertia changes, the control authority changes, right? So the adaptive guidance becomes much more necessary. And the air density in hypersonic missiles, obviously, if the missile keeps going up, the altitude, the air density or the aerodynamic density reduces. And near the Earth, rho is 1.25, and at very high altitude, it's going to be rho. The aerodynamic density is almost 0.2, so it's going to be thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. The dynamic pressure effect, so the dynamic pressure Q is equal to half rho v square. So suppose that the rho decreases, then the dynamic pressure will also decrease. The aerodynamic forces will weaken dynamically, and the control surface effectiveness, so aerodynamic control moment, so M of A being the Q times S times C, S being the relative area for the fin moment, the relative length, not relative length, the relative area. Q obviously is the dynamic pressure, that is half rho V square, and C being the what was the name again? The pitch, the yaw moment, right? Um, yeah. So suppose if the pitch rate, if the pitch pressure decreases, then the control surface, the effectiveness of it will also decrease. So the fins and the aerodynamic, they're gonna lose its effectiveness because obviously your dynamic pressure is decreasing, right? And the only reason your dynamic pressure is, it's more of like if you keep going up, if the missile, like we're gonna consider in correlation to a rocket, if it keeps going up, like all the way up, then what happens is that it erodes quickly. It erodes faster because it's more of like compressed, right? It's fully compressed. And so you need to take that into consideration because it's compressed. It's compressing because the aerodynamic density, there is none. The only reason I'm able to walk, I'm able to move, I'm able to do this is because the density is high. But at the top, there is no density because it's vacuum. So you're just going to float around. But because there is no density, it's going to compress. There is nothing, no air, nothing. Right? So why TVC becomes important? So at high altitude, aerodynamic forces weaken, the fins will become weaker, the control surface loses authority. So thus, the U of T being del of TVC becomes critically important for hypersonic stabilization. The thrust variation dynamics, so if it's not zero, then the trajectory deviation will increase dynamically. Um, Monte Carlo simulations, Monte Carlo analysis, multiple random simulations. I think I'm going to stop here. I have some other things to finish off. Right.